Hi, this is Michael Ostrolenk, and I'm speaking with Jim Harper. He's Director of Information Policy Studies at the Cato Institute. Afternoon, Jim.
Good to be here.
Great to have you. So, Jim, I've helped coordinate and put together a working group of conservative and libertarian groups, creating a top priority list of measures we'd like to see a new Congress in 2013 and the new administration implement. We came to you as an information specialist at the Cato Institute seeking your counsel on data transparency, because I know that's something of great interest to you. Speak to us kind of what is data transparency and why is it so important?
Well, you can think about transparency broadly as lots of different practices. Scheduling meetings and announcing them in advance is a transparent practice. Publishing your organization chart, whatever it is, just being a good communicator is an organizational practice that produces transparency. Governmentally, we think about FOIA, as being able to ask for documents and get them, whistleblower protections, all these things. So there's many varieties of transparency. The thing that I'm keenly interested in, as you mentioned, is data transparency. If you look at FOIA as being retrospective, so what happened? Why did the government do this? That kind of thing. Data transparency, I think, is prospective. Information about government decision making, information about government management, information about government results, published as a matter of course, as a matter of practice, daily practice of the agencies, of the Congress, etc. Will help the public do a better job of oversight. It needs to do. We can't give all our responsibility over to our representatives. We have to do some oversight ourselves still, as we're learning sorely through experience with the overlarge and efficient government we got. Well, so what's data transparency then? And that's been actually an interesting challenge for the last couple of years, figuring out exactly what that is. So at the beginning of the Obama administration, for example, I put on an event at Cato suggesting that this was a transpartisan, pan-ideological interest transparency. We did this event called Just Give Us the Data with people from all perspectives because I wanted to signal that we all want to see this transparency thing go forward and not become a partisan issue. 2 years into the Obama administration, though, we really hadn't seen much change. We'd seen a lot of activity, and I believe that the administration's intentions were good, the president's intentions were good, but we hadn't seen a lot of activity, and it occurred to me that nobody really knows what data transparency is or how to do it. And so I issued a paper called Publication Practices for Transparent Government, where I kind of went through that, having interviewed technical people who really work with data, and translated to the extent I could, translated their world into our world. What do we need to do? That was, what does the policy side or the government side need to do to make data transparent? It boils down to four basic publication practices. One is authoritative sourcing. So you need to put the data somewhere where everybody knows to find it. It's fairly simple, but it's surprisingly rarely done. Go looking for key pieces of data, and ordinary people in particular don't know where to find them. The people who might build websites and create information services don't know where to find them. If you've got a high school civics level education, or even a freshman, sophomore college class in American government, that doesn't tell you where to find the data. And so, authoritative sourcing. Availability is relatively simple. Complete sets of data, available all the time, available in bulk, and available in regular updates. So if you've got a set of data, let's say the legislative record of Congress, not only should somebody be able to download the whole thing, but get incremental updates so that whatever service they're building on top of that data, they can regularly update. The next is machine discoverability. That is arranging this data online wherever you post it so that things like web spiders can come along and find it. And there's a sort of a set of communications around the data as you've published it that indicate what it is. So the public can set their browsers, set their search engines, again, spiders, to go and find this stuff. And the final and most important is machine readability. So that's putting data in a logical structure, a structure that allows computers to pull a lot of the meaning out of it, to understand semantically what's going on. Not to the last to the last detail, but to give a basic structure so that the meaning can be discerned by computers. So those four practices: authority, availability, machine discoverability, and machine readability, are sort of the heart of good data publication that will foster transparency.
What cultural and technological shifts need to occur in the federal government to actually implement these four?
So it's wise of you to ask what cultural shifts have to change, because that's probably as important as anything else. Technology for data publication is relatively simple and straightforward. There are languages like XML, extensible markup languages, commonly used, which is a way of structuring data, and that's probably the one that government should use in a project that I'm doing at Cato is based on XML, to start just showing how this can be done. That doesn't mean it's always easy, because some of these processes are very complex. The legislative process, what's in a bill, how you would mark that up in XML, it's complicated stuff, but it's certainly not insurmountable. The primary changes are policy and cultural. Policy, let's talk about policy in terms of government. That is people deciding that this is a priority, deciding it has to be done. It's certainly, we've heard lots of expressions of interest in transparency from both the president and from House Republicans, for example. As far as forward motion, not a great deal. As I said before, I think both mean to do well, but haven't figured out how. The House just recently has started to really show things, though, with a site called beta.congress.gov going up, which will in a few years be the successor to Thomas, the Library of Congress's legislative database. That's going to improve things. It's going to improve things by a good margin over Thomas, which is a 1995 website. Little change since Newt Gingrich put Thomas in place after the Republican Revolution of '94. So we'll see some forward motion. But in addition to government policy changing, the public is going to have to meet up with the availability of data, and that's an important thing to acknowledge. Is that the data has to come out there, and then there has to be a community of users that understands what it is and how to put it to use. So it's not like you're going to snap your fingers, get policy to change, and then all of a sudden there'll be transparent government. I've used a broad analogy between water and transparency. If you're thirsty, it doesn't help you at all to have salt water. It doesn't help you very much to have a big chunk of ice. What you need is water in a particular way, liquid and relatively pure, in order to drink it. Well, if you lead a horse to water, you can't necessarily get it to drink. And so we need not only to have that sort of pure water, that is data that's refined and processed in a way that makes it available, but we also need people, website builders, information services, everybody else, to come and use that. So part of my job is to press the government to publish data, and also it's going to be to help to press people to use the data and get the public more informed about what goes on here in D.C.
Are there any agencies that are better at adapting to these policy, technological, and cultural shifts that we're seeing?
Well, it's hard to say. So the Obama administration put together a project called data.gov, and it required all the major agencies to put at least 3 feeds of data up on data.gov. And it was interesting, more as an educational process than actually for any of the data we got. Because what they did was they published the data that they were already putting out there. Some agencies, Department of Defense, published data on overseas military voting. Of all the things you want to know about the Department of Defense, is overseas military voting really the one that you're so interested in? They had said, the administration said high value data. What it happened to be was near at hand data, I think is what a lot of agencies did. The Executive Office of the President, though, and OMB did a good job, and they actually put up feeds that had important information under the set of rules that we looked for, which was that management, deliberation, and results, that kind of information. A lot of agencies are doing a lot of things with social media and interactive policy making and things like that. Hasn't really moved very much. The technical problems are not difficult. It's institutional stuff. People who run agencies tend not to understand. The people at the top levels tend not to understand this stuff very well. So why is it a priority to change our business processes, if you will, in order to make it amenable to this thing that I don't understand?
I think it's a generational thing.
Certainly, it's somewhat generational, but cultural. The benefit of transparency to the government is not well recognized. I think it's fair to say. I'm mostly interested in allowing the public better oversight, and that represents a shift of power, frankly, from the government to people. That suggests that government wouldn't want that to happen. But just as much as that, better transparency will be internal transparency. So in these large agencies of ours, an organization that's working on one particular thing may be able to recognize that another project elsewhere in that same agency or in a different agency is working on the same thing. Oversight within an agency, so someone in a higher level will be able to get a much faster, cleaner view of what's happening in the agency. So internal management of agencies for agencies will be benefited by transparency too. Not a priority of mine, but it's as much a product of good government transparency as public oversight is.
Why should conservatives and libertarians care about data transparency?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it sometimes seems like transparency is just a good government thing. Like we don't want good government, we want small government. And it's sort of a bet that you win if you lose. If transparency doesn't change the size and scope of government, but causes government programs to be more efficient, less corruption prone, and less wasteful, well, that's a win. If not an outright win for libertarians and conservatives, it's better than having programs that are there and spending money and failing. But I think the ultimate result of good data transparency is a smaller government. When people recognize just how much money they're paying compared to what they're getting, they have a better sense of that because they can actually see the numbers, which they can't now. There will be lower overall demand for government. And it's the thing I like about this, or the idea in here that's appealing to me, is that this will cause demand for limited government to be a product of purely improved democracy. That is, people just knowing more about their government will deliver the libertarian and conservative outcomes that we want. I think that's good. That's better than winning the debate based on a clever argument. It's better than just happening to, to array your campaign resources better than the other guys did. I'd be excited to have limited government outcomes thanks to just improved democracy.
Thank you, Jim.
My pleasure.